Hello, my name is Cynthia Rice. I'm Director of Litigation Advocacy and Training for California Rural Legal Assistance, one of the counsel for the plaintiffs in the Sanders versus Kern High School District lawsuit, which resulted in what we feel is a very positive landmark settlement entered into in July of this year, a key component of which is the development of a number of pieces of education process that will be informed by a group of experts, some of whom we have with us today. And the primary focus of today's media advisory, if you will, is to give you a chance to ask any questions you might have of some of the experts we have on that panel, and to give just a little bit more information about the next 3 years under the terms of the settlement agreement, and how these experts will inform the practices and policies at Kern High School District in a manner designed to both create better discipline or behavior modification system and address the issues of racial equity that were included in the lawsuit. So today we have with us Rachel Godsell, who is with the Perception Institute, who has done groundbreaking work nationally, really, on the issues related to racial equity, both in schools and in police forces and in other institutions. Eva Patterson from the Equal Justice Society, another counsel in the lawsuit. Dr. John Eiler from Collaborative Learning Solutions, the lead expert retained by the district for the purposes of implementing the provisions of the settlement agreement, and also with the broader charge of looking at training and discipline measures in Kern High School District. And Zipporah Mills, also with Perception Institute, who's a 32-year in the education biz before she got educated at Perception Institute, including being a principal for 11 years of a school district. And Dr. Jeff Sprague of the University of Oregon, who is a nationally recognized expert on PBIS and multi-tiered systems and supports, all of which are measures designed to address student behavior in educational institutions in a way that helps keep them in school, keep them on track for life success, and at the same time provide a positive educational experience for everyone involved. So there are some specific elements of the settlement agreement that we thought the experts might talk a little bit about. It requires the development and implementation of a behavior and intervention matrix. It implements a mandatory training plan over the course of the next 3 years that will result in the training of all teaching staff, administrative staff, and support staff, including security staff. It continues the implementation of the SHAPE data tracking system, which I believe Dr. Eiler helped develop, and establishes a routine mechanism for administrators and teachers to review the data on discipline, transfers, interventions, in a manner that will help adjust and tweak any systems that need to be adjusted and tweaked over the course of the next 3 years. And the development of a multi-tiered systems and supports handbook, which will can be used as a resource by teachers when addressing behavior issues. So Rachel or John or Jeff or Zipporah, any specific comments that you'd like to make about how you see the next 3 years? We're very excited about this coalition of experts and what can be done with their direction and their advice at Kern High School District, and are looking forward to watching them work over the next 3 years.
Yeah, I'm really excited for a number of reasons. I think across the country, as we know, disproportionate representation of racial ethnic minority kids, kids with disabilities and discipline has been front and center only in recent years. Many people don't know, in 2010 was the first time the Civil Rights Data Collection came out and really put us front and center in understanding what these patterns of exclusion of kids who misbehaved were. And one of the great features, and we can go back to the SHAPE system, is we've learned that people are doing this, often they're doing it in the absence of knowledge of the patterns. And so by implementing a data system like this, and it's really core in our development of the work called PBIS, as we know people perform better when they're getting feedback about their performance. It's a simple idea, but often discipline was meted out usually by sending a child home or to the office, and administrators and teachers were never taught what the long-term patterns of that were. And so for a short period of time, in the short run, problem gone, problem solved, but then the child comes back, type of thing. So those patterns got lost kind of in that regard. So I think the level of detail in the settlement agreement is great because it really represents at least some of the best strategies that we know to this point to make a difference in what we're seeing locally, but also nationally in that regard. And I'm really excited about Rachel's involvement, newer work around what's typically called implicit bias, other terms like stereotype threat. They really help us understand the perspective, particularly of teachers and administrators, and help them be better in thinking through their actions as they proceed through the day. Because let's face it, teaching is a stressful profession. Being a school administrator is stressful, and so we'll be able to learn a lot about how those forces work to help people maybe not make the best decisions, but help them improve their decision making in that way. And I'll just say one more thing. I'm really excited about John's group, Dr. Eiler's group, and his colleagues. I know many of them as colleagues myself, and so far I think there's really a lot of good work going on. So I'm really quite excited to be part of it and to learn more about the progress and also the patterns that are emerging, so we can collectively steer the ship in the right direction. So.
Thank you, Jeff. I want to make mention of like Dr. Eddie Fergus is also a member of the expert team. He's from Temple University. He's just unable to be here in person, but I think it's important to mention him. If I can just speak to this, is what I think I'm most proud of is this team really represents a collaborative effort of multiple parties to say, let's put the best minds in the room to help provide some guidance and assistance with the current high school district. So I think that's what I'm most excited about, to collaborate across multiple disciplines and really to work together on this work. If I was to summarize a little bit of just the bodies of work, if you will, so there's really kind of 4 big areas that I would place this work in. So one is around data systems, which I think has been mentioned a couple times. Really what this does, it allows school site teams to be able to look at data on a frequent basis. So it's not lag data or after the fact where you're looking back and at a trend that occurred the year before. It could be weekly, it could be even daily if they wanted to. So it gives them frequent feedback in terms of trends around disproportionality, students who are starting to kind of hit the radar, if you will, in terms of showing signs not only of suspensions but office referrals. And so I think that's a really key piece to this. Another body of work is around professional learning, and as was mentioned earlier, there's, I think, a very aggressive plan in terms of professional learning. So there are areas of social emotional learning, restorative practices, equity and cultural responsiveness, classroom management, and multi-tiered systems of support. So there are multiple areas of professional learning. And then the 2 other areas are, one deals with more of the coaching aspect, and this is for school sites. And so there are 2 coaching components that are happening simultaneously for school site teams and school leadership. One is in the area of equity, and this is really led by the work of Dr. Fergus. And he's really helping teams look at data and have conversations around how belief systems shape results that we're seeing in terms of student outcomes. The other set of coaching involves the implementation of structures around positive behavior interventions and supports, PBIS. And so those are happening at school sites, and there's a cycle for the next several years of continued coaching for school site teams. Then the last body of work is really district level work, and this is more of the sustainability pieces. So it's not just we train people, we coach people, and then we hope that you continue this work down the road. We really want to ensure that there are systems of sustainability that live on beyond the work that this team supports the district. And so, you know, as was mentioned before, there's a set of guidelines around multi-tiered systems of support. There's some work being done around discipline guidelines that not only just looks at a consequence-driven system, but a system that prevents long-term behavioral incidents, if you will, and builds skill sets with students. And so I'm excited about those pieces, and so I think this really represents not only a collaborative effort, but a very, very comprehensive plan that is not often seen in school districts to do a district-wide effort like this. So I think it's an exciting opportunity, not only for the students of the current high school district, but also for the community.
So I'm delighted to be here. My name is Rachel Gonsel, and I'm with the Perception Institute, as was mentioned, which is a consortium of social psychologists and neuroscientists and people who are doing cutting-edge research around the country to help understand, as Jeff described, how it is that people who have egalitarian values, who want to do the right thing, sometimes struggle to align behavior with those values. And so, as my colleague and advisors at Brian Mills will talk about, educators come into this work wanting to work with kids, and so the question of how disproportionalities arise sometimes feels very kind of upsetting and confusing to everyone, families who are involved, and even for the teachers, because if they want to do well by every child, why isn't that happening? And so what the mind sciences provide is a way to understand how both things can be true, and then how teachers can align their values with their behavior, and the children can receive sort of the love and the attention. Every child can feel as though the school is there for them. And so what we'll be doing is continuing to look through the research around the country, share it with the team, and again with Brian Mills, help think about how it can be translated into school district processes. We do work with judges and prosecutors and police officers and health providers and every kind of institution that has these same issues and challenges. And whenever we work with an institution, we always have someone who's a content expert in the day-to-day implementation of how all this works. So we have this great science, but what does it look like on the ground? And so again, we bring in a content advisor. So Zip Mills, who's been an educator for 32 years, will be working with us to think about how we can share information with the team that's based upon the day-to-day life of a principal and a teacher. So I can share some of your thoughts.
And so my intention is to come into this work here in Bakersfield with a very unique perspective. That's one of being a woman of color, an educator of color, a mom who's raised children, obviously of color, in a very segregated system of education. And so thinking about how teachers see things, how parents who are in this see things, and as how school administrators see things. So I'm hoping that my unique experience is something that the team can use and can value. And I intend to be there that way.
I'm Eva Patterson. I'm one of the attorneys representing the Dolores Huerta Foundation, Faith in Action, Kern County, and the National Brotherhood Association. We're at a very difficult time in our nation's history where Black and Latino people are feeling under attack. Racism is on the rise again. This settlement really constitutes a hopeful vision for how the country can be. The district has committed itself to hiring some of the best people in the country to figure out how to deal with the fact that lots of Black and Latino kids are getting expelled, but the teachers do not want to be racially biased, and you've got the best people in the country who can help them figure out how to change their attitudes and their policies so our kids stay in school. So do you have any questions for us?
I'm here to listen to what you guys are talking about tonight and the meeting that you guys have going on over there. But what does this mean for like the Kern High School District and other districts around the county? What does all this mean?
My view is that this is a cutting-edge settlement, and if it works well, which we hope it will, it'll be a model for other school districts around the country. I think this means that the powers that be at Kern High School District want to do right by Black and Latino kids, and it's very, very hopeful. But I'd be interested in what other people have to say. Cynthia is our lead counsel.
Well, I did want to echo something that Dr. Eiler said, that this is a comprehensive approach to addressing school behavior as well as the kind of implicit racial bias that Rachel Gottsel was talking about. And it's unique in that respect, near as we can tell, and as Eva said, we hope it will be a model. We hope it will be such a smashing success in the Kern High School District that everyone will want to do it.
And what I would say is that the research tells us is that in order for institutions to succeed, teachers need to feel supported, administrators need to feel supported, and that will translate into families and children, of course, most importantly, feeling supported. And so the collaborative nature of this work and everyone coming together and looking in a positive way toward what the future can be for the schools and for the kids is what the research tells us will work. And so in some sense, everyone's interests are aligned here, because for the children to be treated as exactly the way they should, for every child to feel loved, we need to provide ways that teachers and administrators can feel as though the institutions are supporting them as well.
And I think just specifically, it's a bit reiterating some of the points that John made about the overall plan, not only for other schools in Kern County, but across the state and even across the country. We have a much different focus on the use of data around behavior. Schools have been accountable for academics for many years through testing, state testing and things like that. We're finally at a point, I believe, where we can help schools be smarter around behavior and understand the relation between misbehavior, academic achievement, teacher behavior. So that's really groundbreaking in many ways, because we'll be able to demonstrate over time here what the impact of that is. We have some emerging research, but it's still a relatively new set of practices here. So that's really, I think, a powerful kind of piece. Dr. Eiler also mentioned even changing how we do staff development. So the old way we used to call, hopefully humorously, the drive-by workshop. We'd come and do some training and hope that it would have some impact. So the follow-up coaching becomes so critical in that regard, and really essential. We know probably more about it around supporting reading and math instruction, but we're getting much smarter about how we support behavior support and behavior management in that regard. And I think the work of Rachel's group also brings us to some new content that hasn't been really approached before. We used to focus more on basic skills like classroom management, but getting into the hearts and minds of educators, it really is new work. And I think the team here, including Dr. Fergus, I don't know of any better group. We contacted Dr. Fergus many years ago on some work we were doing actually with American Indian communities. So when I heard Eddie was involved, I'm like, cool, that was a good way to go too. And maybe one final piece, which I think is unique, is discipline also is traditionally focused on what does an individual teacher do, or what does an individual administrator do, which was usually to send a kid away. Now the science really is clear. The more you send a kid away, the worse they get, not better. And so learning to repair and support kids, it doesn't mean we're not holding kids accountable for their misbehavior, but if that's all we do, we actually make them worse. So we have to focus on repair and long-term support, also acknowledging that for the children, students most at risk in our communities, simply sending them away actually essentially trains them to become prisoners, right? It's called the school to prison pipeline. And so many of the policies and practices that will come to play will hold kids accountable, but also focus on bringing kids back, giving them a second chance, teaching them new ways to behave. And a lot of that comes out of not only our traditions of traditional behavior management through things like special education, but we also see then, I think, the legal system also supporting in a more clear way the rights of students moving forward. So it, long-term, medium-term, and short-term, it will have huge impact for schools across the country, not just in Kern County, which I know you're not specifically asking, but we're starting to see these themes emerge, and so this, as Cynthia said, this is a great model and a great start and next step in that process. So.
The other impact it will have, another thing that's built into the settlement, is the 2 community forums that will be held every year. We are hoping that this will be an opportunity for school district administrative as well as teaching staff to have an opportunity to interact with the community as a whole. The first one is set for next Tuesday, the 19th. I believe Dr. Eiler will be there, some of the other experts. And it will give the community an important opportunity with district staff there, expert staff there, to talk about issues, to ask about issues, and hear from the district what progress has been made and where there still needs to be work, because data will be shared at this meeting and at the next meetings over the course of the next 3 years.
It's 6 o'clock, 6:06.
Pardon me?
It's 6:06.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions?
If I could just grab one of them to do an individual, just so I can mic them up.